Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be talking about the intersection between youth homelessness and violence. This video series was created by the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. In this video, we will define forms of violence like domestic violence, sexual violence, teen dating violence, and human trafficking. Then, we will discuss how youth homelessness intersects and overlaps with these different types of violence. First, let's define some terms. Runaway youth are youth that leave home without permission and stay away overnight or longer. Homeless youth are in a situation where it is not possible for them to live in a safe environment with a relative. They have no other safe alternative living arrangement available, like staying with a friend or another relative. Throwaway youth are asked or told to leave home and are prevented from returning home by a parent or other household adult and are out of the household overnight. The age range associated with youth homelessness depends on the type of program and its funding source. Ages can range from 16 to 25 years old. Now, let's define some forms of violence. Domestic violence is a pattern of coercive, controlling behavior against a current or former intimate partner that can include physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, or financial abuse. According to a resource created by the National Resource Center on Domestic Violence, abuse and neglect at home is often the reason that youth end up on the streets, and the experience of abuse at home may increase the risk of being abused or becoming abusive in adolescent and adult relationships. As a result of the loss of control youth may feel during homelessness, they may also perpetrate the same abuse that they witnessed in their past to feel a small sense of control. Another form of violence that intersects with youth homelessness is teen dating violence. Similar to domestic violence, teen dating violence is defined as the use of abusive behavior between one dating teen partner or ex-partner against another teen for the purpose of gaining power and control. This can include and look like many forms of abuse, including physical, verbal or emotional abuse, sexual abuse, or financial abuse. This is the teen dating violence power and control wheel. This wheel shows various types of abuse tactics that are a part of an abuser's power and control. This power and control wheel was purposely made with teens in mind. Components of the power and control wheel for teens includes intimidation, minimizing, denying, blaming, threatening, sexual coercion, using social status, anger and emotional abuse, peer pressure, and isolation or exclusion. Let's go through a section of the wheel together. One tactic that a perpetrator may use to perpetrate dating violence is peer pressure. This might look like threatening to expose someone's personal information or spread rumors or lies to others within or outside of an individual's peer group. Young people who have run away from home or are homeless or unstably housed are far more vulnerable to dating violence and other victimization than their stably housed peers. The experience of identifying as LGBTQ+ is associated with a greater risk of experiencing youth homelessness. According to the Trevor Project's National Survey on LGBTQ Youth Mental Health from 2021, 28% of LGBTQ youth reported experiencing homelessness or housing instability at some point in their lives. Homelessness and housing instability were reported at higher rates among transgender and non-binary youth. More than half ran away because of mistreatment or fear of mistreatment due to their LGBTQ identity. Others reported that they were kicked out or abandoned, with 40% reporting that they were kicked out or abandoned due to their LGBTQ identity. Another form of violence that intersects with youth homelessness is human trafficking. Human trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for the purpose of labor or a commercial sex act by force, fraud, or coercion. Note that neither force, fraud, or coercion are required to be shown for minors under age 18 induced into commercial sex acts. A common myth about human trafficking is that it happens in other countries and communities rather than our own. What we do know is that human trafficking does occur within our communities. Youth who are experiencing homelessness are more vulnerable to be targeted by traffickers. According to the Family and Youth Services Bureau, researchers are finding that running away from home significantly increases young people's risk of commercial sexual exploitation as well as labor trafficking. Youth trafficking and trafficking in general is always considered a severe form of victimization, and it is never the fault of the victim. Despite this, many states still arrest youth who are involved in sex trafficking for prostitution-related offenses. According to the National Network for Youth, 1 in 5 runaway and homeless youth are a victim of human trafficking. This is inclusive of sex and labor trafficking. One study found that 68% of the youth who had either been trafficked or engaged in survival sex or commercial sex had done so while homeless. Survival sex happens when traffickers use a youth's basic needs as leverage to coerce them into exchanging sex acts for food, shelter, clothing, or other basic needs. According to the National Network for Youth, 1/3 of homeless and runaway youth have had to engage in survival sex to survive. 24% of youth living on the streets had exchanged sex for money, and 27% had exchanged sex for a place to stay. According to the National Network for Youth, some youth experiencing homelessness are even more vulnerable to trafficking. Interviews and research with youth illustrate some common themes and pathways that increase their risk for trafficking. Lack of basic needs, such as not having a safe place to sleep at night, often play a role in youth's trafficking experiences. Early trauma, such as homelessness and exploitation, begins early, often well before the age of 18. LGBTQ+ youth are particularly vulnerable and experience trafficking at higher rates than other youth experiencing homelessness. Youth who have been in foster care also experience trafficking at higher rates than other youth experiencing homelessness. Youth experiencing homelessness who have also been victims of sex trafficking are more likely to have mental health and substance use issues, to have experienced physical and emotional abuse by parents or guardians, and to have had a history of sexual abuse. There are plenty of barriers that prevent survivors of violence from seeking help. They may be fearful of retaliation if they tell someone about the abuse. They may be fearful of the criminal court system's intervention, or they may fear involvement of Child Protective Services. They may feel shame or guilt regarding their experience of victimization and may have internalized victim blaming. They may lack resources. They may hope that things will change on their own. If they are in a relationship with their perpetrator, they may fear losing the relationship and they may still love their perpetrator. They may also fear being isolated or ostracized by their community. Finally, they may fear that they will not be believed. So, what can we do? We can remember the tenets of advocacy. Advocacy for survivors must be intersectional. It must be aware and inclusive of all lived experiences and identities that survivors have. Advocacy must be trauma informed, which means that we are aware of and understand the neurobiology of trauma and that we are working to reduce the trauma experienced as survivors navigate our systems. Advocacy must also be survivor-centered, which means that we return power and autonomy and choice to survivors whenever possible, and we recognize that they are in charge of their own lives. The Michigan Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence has a 100% confidential and accessible crisis and support hotline. It is available 24/7 all days of the year. You can call, text, or chat the hotline to access crisis support for yourself if you or a loved one is or has experienced violence. You can also call to get connected with any resources that a survivor may need across the state of Michigan. Please feel free to call, text, chat, or use TTY. You can find more information about our hotline on our website. Here are some additional resources that we recommend and that we have referenced in the video. We encourage you to explore these resources further. Thank you for your time listening. Please feel free to reach out to us at mcedsv.org